Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you. We've got some severe weather to talk about in the plains, and we're going to take a look at what the rest of the week into the weekend looks like. But a lot of this focus is going to be on the shorter term, as we do have a severe weather outbreak expected to unfold again as we get later into this evening and overnight tonight. Let me share my screen with you. Thank you so much for joining me, by the way. I really do appreciate your time. I'm going to try to keep this video a little bit shorter than the last few, but we do have a strengthening storm system that's going to move into the high plains later today into tonight. And with it, we don't see a very widespread outbreak of severe weather, but some folks are going to get crushed with some giant hail. And I want you to be prepared for that. And really, the risk looks to be the highest for severe weather in Nebraska and Kansas, but the risk for if we get storms to pop the largest hail is actually going to be farther south across Oklahoma into north central and northwestern Texas. And we've already seen some severe weather. Last night was pretty rough for some parts of Nebraska, southern and eastern Nebraska, with hail reported. We also even had some hail in the Salt Lake City region, which is a little bit more than you would typically expect this time of the year, and a bit of severe weather across South Dakota as well. And that's just the start of what's going to be kind of a 3-day assault of severe weather. The reason why, we've got a pretty intense storm system that has moved into the western U.S., and you can see kind of the upper level low over Montana. Storms erupted last night, and you can see a lot of moisture in the upper levels of the atmosphere moving eastward. And right now, most of the weather across Iowa, but below severe limits. Now, as the week wears on, we're going to see this system eventually get kicked off to the south and east and draw a colder air in behind it. And that's going to bring some pretty changeable weather again. It's pretty chilly here in the Northeast this morning, and temperatures do start to warm back up close to record levels at the end of the week. But after this storm moves through, we're going to see another huge drop in temperatures. And the pattern repeats itself, where we go up the roller coaster and then crash. And that's going to be over the weekend once again. We're going to have some wet weather with it as well. Things are pretty quiet across the southeast. Beautiful weather if you're doing gardening or mowing the lawn or doing outdoor projects the next few days. It'll get warm, but the humidity is not going to be bad at all in the southeast. It will stay a little bit more humid across Florida, as you would expect for this time of the year. And the west will be chilly, but drying out as we get into the next couple of days. Currently, the map shows a pretty big fire danger over the south central United States. We also had high fire conditions over Virginia yesterday. Today, North Jersey, or really all of New Jersey, has that risk. The reason why is we've got very dry air in place, and the winds have been gusty in the afternoons, over 15 miles per hour. And with that low amount of moisture in the atmosphere and a lot of wind, if anything does pop up, it can spread pretty quickly, so do be prepared for that. Tonight, we do have freeze watches and warnings over the eastern Ohio Valley and lower Great Lakes. And our next storm moving onto the plains is going to produce some gusty winds. You can see some wind advisories here and winter storm warnings posted for parts of Montana into North Dakota. And I'd imagine those continue into the prairies of central Canada as well. So there are places where winter is going to extend well into May. And I would expect that would be the Dakotas, northwest Minnesota, and Montana. The Rockies typically get snow into June, so no shocker there. But we certainly are going to stay chilly here across the interior of the western United States. This morning, we do have that surge of warm air into Nebraska, where temperatures are up into the 60s into south central Nebraska. That's going to help fuel the moisture and help fuel the storm development as we get into tonight. We can see it's a lot colder behind our storm out west, teens and 20s in the higher elevations. And it's a chilly morning here in the Northeast. Many of you waking up to the upper 30s and low 40s, even Pittsburgh, PA, just above the freezing mark. While the Southeast is not as cold as it has been, but still a bit on the cool side. So you'll want that jacket heading out this morning. But temperatures have warmed up significantly in the northern plains ahead of our next storm. See the big gradient here between the warming and the cooling. That is what things are going to look like as we get farther east in time this week and towards the weekend, and a big drop in temperature coming by Saturday over the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, Sunday across the eastern United States. And here's why. You can see on our surface chart, we've got a kind of a two-piece storm system, one over Kansas, the other over northern Minnesota. There's kind of two different features here. They're going to kind of merge here into one bigger storm moving up into Minnesota and Wisconsin tomorrow. And kind of a wintry mess once again across northern Minnesota, northern Michigan, going over to rain, but snow just to the west of where it's raining over parts of Minnesota. We could see significant snow in northern Minnesota again. Meanwhile, in the plains, we've got the threat for severe weather here as fast winds aloft move up and over a warmer, moist air mass. That storm moves east into the Mississippi Valley Thursday, and it looks like Arkansas down into Texas and Louisiana Thursday night into Friday morning will have some pretty rough weather. Now, some changes in the forecast this weekend. As the storm moves east, we do have a second low pressure system set to form. However, every model I'm looking at today is faster with the storm, and so the cold air doesn't quite catch up to the moisture involved with it. So rather than having a strengthening, slowing storm over Michigan, we have kind of a speedier storm that moves up into Ontario and Quebec. And so right now it's looking a lot less likely we're going to see a blitz of some snow across the Great Lakes and into the eastern Ohio Valley Saturday night. Yesterday, it looked like that would be the case. Today, all of the models have sped up with this. And while they could go back to that solution, I don't think it's going to be as likely. So at this point, unless you're in upper Michigan and central and eastern Canada, you're probably going to get away with nothing more than a couple of snowflakes. And that includes the mountains of Tennessee and Kentucky are likely to kind of stay dry but chilly here as we get to the weekend. So the other thing I want you to keep an eye on is with this strengthening low pressure system, we may have a few heavier storms moving through the Ohio Valley into the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states here on Saturday afternoon, but it doesn't look like a huge threat for severe weather widespread. Now, back to today, we've got a pretty big area of slight risk here, and with that slight risk, we do have a tornado chance this evening over northern Kansas, southeast Nebraska, just south of Omaha, and the northwestern tip of Missouri and southwest Iowa. So there's a 5% chance for a tornado. Is this going to be a big tornado outbreak? I don't think so, but there could be a few supercells out ahead of this line of storms that gets going tonight. And you'll definitely want to be prepared for that. There may be a tornado watch this evening for parts of this region. A bigger threat for strong winds will form as the evening wears on from north central Kansas, eventually spreading into Des Moines, Iowa, and even into Kansas City very late tonight. So be prepared overnight tonight to have multiple ways of getting your watches and warnings if you're in the central part of the country, as I do think we're going to see quite a bit of that. But hail is going to be potentially huge here across Nebraska and Kansas, maybe 2 to 3 inch hail. We've got over 3 million people that are going to be in that threat for large hail, including Omaha, Wichita, Lincoln, Nebraska, Lawton, Oklahoma, Council Bluffs, Iowa. The threat for very large hail just ends just to the west of Oklahoma City, but we're pretty close there as well. But this is going to be kind of a conditional threat. If we get storms to form this far south, then any kind of hail could be huge. In fact, we could see our biggest hail in places like Fort Sill, Lawton, southwestern Oklahoma. So that's something I'll be watching for you guys here. Now, as we get to tomorrow, this threat for severe weather shifts eastward, and especially southeastward, includes the Dallas area, maybe even in Austin, Shreveport overnight tomorrow night, Little Rock later tomorrow night, into southern parts of Missouri. And we do have a pretty decent chance for some hail across Texas here, maybe some large hail, 2 inches or so of diameter. And the tornado risk is not super high, but there is a 2% chance for a tornado in here as well. I think it's going to be more likely a widespread wind event with embedded large hailstones across parts of Texas. As we get to day 3, that's Friday, we still have a chance for severe weather. Notice how, though, that chance does lessen as the storm moves eastward into Kentucky and Tennessee. And the best chance for severe weather is going to be focused on southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. So the Houston area may be under the gun on Friday for severe weather. Beyond that, we don't have any significant areas of severe weather to watch, but we'll keep an eye on the southeast for Saturday. And maybe even up into the mid-Atlantic and West Virginia as well for some stronger wind gusts as that front moves through. All right, so we do have some differences in the short-term models that I want to point out to you real quick here, and this is what's making this forecast a lot more challenging. As we get into this afternoon, not a whole lot's going to be on the map except maybe a few storms in northwest Illinois. As we get to tonight, on the NAM model, you do see storms firing up over Kansas, Oklahoma, and even northwest Texas. And this is going to be about 8 o'clock Central Time. So 8 o'clock is when storms are expected to initiate. Notice there's not a lot of organization with these, but any storm that does get going could be pretty big. But we don't see a lot carrying eastward towards Oklahoma City or even east of Wichita into the Flint Hills. More of the organization gets going later this evening around 11 o'clock in northeastern Kansas and into southeast Nebraska. And then this is midnight central, and this is where our most likely chance for severe weather is going to be. So farther south, we may not see much survive tonight, but what does pop briefly could be pretty massive when it comes to hail. As we get overnight tonight, we see an organized line of severe weather with straight line winds, maybe a tornado, and large hail expected. And then this should weaken by this time tomorrow morning around daybreak, and we will see scattered showers and storms continuing south and east. And I will rezoom this map out so you can see Texas and Arkansas for tomorrow evening. Does not look like a repeat, though, of last weekend's storm system. The winds aloft are not as favorable for that kind of squall line to move through. I don't know if you guys saw, but the St. Louis area had about 15 tornadoes on Saturday. All of them were EF1 or lower, so they were not high end. But even the St. Louis city area did have that threat for tornadoes. I don't think this storm system is going to replicate that, but certainly it is within the realm of possibility. Things should leave this area by Thursday night, Friday morning. Now, the HRRR model says we are just really not seeing anything across Texas, Oklahoma, or even Kansas, other than maybe far northeastern Kansas. So it is much less. It's got kind of less moisture in play and more of a cap aloft, which would keep those storms from really forming and growing. So a much different solution than the NAM. And this is, of course, what forecasters really don't want to see. If you're trying to put out an accurate forecast and we see much disagreement just 12 to 18 hours out, it's not obviously what we want to see. But I want to bring those possibilities up with you so you guys can understand what's going on here. But definitely a better chance in northeastern Kansas, southeastern Nebraska, and then spreading into western Iowa overnight tonight. So really 2 to 7 a.m. is our best chance for that severe weather. And then tomorrow on the HRRR, things look kind of like we may see a little bit more in the way of supercells over southeastern Oklahoma, northeast Texas, central Arkansas, even into the Ozarks region. And a lot of that's going to be after about 5 o'clock tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. I would not be shocked, though, if something popped up earlier in the afternoon farther west. Maybe not all the way to Ardmore, but just south and east of Tulsa, Fayetteville, Arkansas, up to just east of Springfield, Missouri. So that's what I'll be watching for you guys here. And then here is the HV3 model, and you can see a lot more in the way of storm tracks over North Texas and southern Oklahoma than what we just saw here with the HRRR model. So again, big disagreement, but they do generally agree on the area that would see severe weather, especially tonight. But yeah, not a lot of agreement here. And then the RRFS, this is a prototype that we're going to see more and more of down the road, really does not have much of anything going during the afternoon hours, but it definitely has the threat for quickly exploding storms right at around 6 to 7 o'clock central in south central Oklahoma, northeastern Kansas, northwestern Missouri. So this is faster than what we saw with the other models as well. Farther to the south, here's what the NAM is showing us in Texas. Not a lot today, as I had mentioned, but tomorrow we do see more robust storms in the Arklatex region, and especially into central Texas tomorrow night, near to the northeast of Austin, Round Rock, Georgetown, over to about Tyler. We definitely have a hail threat, and we do have strong winds possible. And then these will move into the Houston area before daybreak on Friday morning. And most of that severe weather in southeast Texas could be in the morning on Friday. And then in the afternoon, we see it across Louisiana and southern Mississippi, but a general weakening trend at that point. So let's shift gears into the Northeast today. We still have some snowflakes falling out there this morning, nothing too significant, maybe in the Finger Lakes region the next couple hours, and then things are winding down. Northern New England will see some light snowfall right on through this evening, and then things will wind down. Quieter weather with a quick warm-up expected later tomorrow and especially on Friday. In the upper Midwest, here's where our winter storm's going to get cranking here. Actually, not really the upper Midwest, but really the northern plains, Montana, North Dakota, into the prairies of Canada here. And you can see it's just going to be a nasty mess. As we get later into tonight, into tomorrow morning, rain changes to snow. Places like Fargo, Morehead City, northwestern Minnesota, and we see significant snow falling tomorrow. Will be a pretty big snowstorm, probably not quite a blizzard, but getting close to that. But really nasty weather right on through Friday morning, and then things should very slowly wind down Friday afternoon. Here's a look at the European model as well, and you can see kind of our precipitation types are kind of a wintry mess here north of St. Cloud into northwestern parts of Wisconsin. Then a shift over to rain, maybe some thunderstorms not far from where we see this frozen precip. towards the Twin Cities here tonight. And then we may see a little snow in the Twin Cities, but most of it's going to be north of you. A wintry mess in the Arrowhead and significant snow up over the U.S. border, U.S.-Canadian border. And then snow showers stick with us into the start of the weekend with some instability here as our trough slowly swings through the area. But notice Saturday versus yesterday's model that showed snow back into Indiana, Ohio. Today, it's just got some chilly rain and then it ends. And that is the trend at this point, and that's what I'm going to stick with unless I see it go back the other direction. Temperature anomalies are certainly much above average here in the Ohio Valley the next couple of days, but look how quickly it turns colder. Tomorrow we see drops of 20 degrees below average and much colder as we head to the weekend across much of the central U.S. Eventually that spreads eastward. So we're going to see big temperature drops here where we're above average here Thursday and then much below average by Saturday and Sunday. So be prepared to run the heat once again here this weekend. Certainly a significant drop there. In the east, it looks great in the southeast the next several days. We'll see some light rain spreading into western New York, and then that moves out, and temperatures quickly warm up. These red lines indicate thicknesses, and those indicate how warm the air mass is. Friday into Saturday, we're going to be back into the 70s and 80s, and then our storms move in on Saturday, and at this point, I'm not expecting a huge outbreak of severe weather. The low is lifting up into Canada. We also will have some cloud cover in place over the Carolinas and Southeast, which will kind of limit the amount of instability we have. But any storm that does pop up here Saturday afternoon between Charlotte and Raleigh and Richmond could have some strong wind with it. We'll also have to watch for strong winds across western New York, much like we saw last Saturday, but I don't think it's going to be as bad an event. So yeah, Saturday night, going to be wet. Sunday, we stay wet in New England. We dry out and turn cooler, but it should be a decent day in the mid-Atlantic and Southeast heading into Sunday before it turns colder on Sunday night. And here's a look at snow totals. We are going to see amounts over a foot in here over the prairies of Canada, and then eventually getting into Western Ontario and Northern Minnesota. But right now, the accumulation does not look to be a big story for us here in the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. Light amounts in Wisconsin, but nothing like what we saw here Sunday night and Monday. The bigger snows are expected over northwestern and north central Ontario. So hate to backtrack on you guys, but that's kind of what the models are showing. And if it changes again, I'll of course keep you posted on it. Thank you so much for your time today. If you could subscribe to my YouTube channel, I very much would appreciate that. We are going to have a lot of severe weather to talk about the next few days, and that's where most of my focus will be. And I'm sorry if you're missing out on that, but I'm not sorry because we've had enough of that this spring. But more tornadoes are going to be possible, but certainly large hail is going to be a big story as well. I want to give all the glory to God who has called me to do this to help you guys to be safe and be prepared for the weather. Everybody has a purpose in life. Everyone has a calling, and I believe it's to help you all with the weather, but also to share my faith. And I know there's been some struggles that we've all gone through, whether or not you're a believer. But I know that the Lord has already promised me that He will bless me and He'll bless you as well. In fact, John 15:7 says, "If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you." Pray to God. He will answer those prayers for you. Maybe not overnight, but I have seen many prayers answered. And I just want to encourage you and lift you up if you are struggling with your faith, or if you're in a spot where your faith is strong, but you still need that encouragement, because I believe we all do as human beings. Then it's okay to put the shame aside, give it all to God and say, God, do your thing. I'm happy for you. You've blessed me with eternal life, and you've given us all gifts, and we just want to continue to go to you, God, Yahweh, who gives us the strength to do what we do. Thank you so much for your time today. God bless you, and I'm happy to pray for you. If you have any prayer requests as well, please list those in the comments, and I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. See you again in the morning. Take care.